Welcome to the unboxing of the Super Nintendo Classic Edition. Now, it's September 29th, so this system actually just came out today. I'm very excited to have gotten my hands on one. Like many people out there, I was pretty disappointed to miss out on the pre-orders when this thing launched several weeks ago. The pre-orders went up in minutes. So I was pretty bummed I couldn't get a pre-order in, but the news came out that there'd be a lot available on launch day, so I took my chances, went to Target this morning. A couple hours before they opened, was third in line, and easily secured a copy. So we're going to cut the talk and get right to the unboxing. So what you have is a standard Nintendo box, and they, you can tell just right out the bat, they went all in with the artwork on this. The front just draws you in. It's got the picture of the console and two controllers there. It's got the old school, Super Nintendo early 90s font, and then it's got a lot of its flagship titles that the Super Nintendo became famous for in the early 90s. And then if you go to the back of the box here, it really just breaks down all of the available games and either artwork or screenshots. Get a little bit of a close-up here. A lot of the artwork is the pictures of the cartridges, or the boxes that the cartridges came in back when they were released in the early to mid-90s. And then you have a few down here that are screenshots of in-game footage. And in the top left you have the rundown, the list of all of the games that go into the system. On the side here, you've got a brief description of what the Super Nintendo mini console brings. Advertises 20 pre-installed classic Super Nintendo games from the 90s, fully loaded. This is a plug-and-play system. It's actually 21 games, which, as many of you know, there's the unreleased Star Fox 2 game that by beating the first level of the original Star Fox on the system, you unlock Star Fox 2, which is pretty cool. The top of the box, you've got the retro picture, little retro label that Nintendo's been putting on a lot of their packaging. I think the original Nintendo Classic that they released last year had a similar artwork on the outside. I think the Switch, again, similar style to that. And you go to the other side, it has a brief description of the controller. I'll try to get a little less blurry here. There we go. So again, just showing the controller, brief description of the what the controller has, the features, the buttons, the whole 9 yards. So now that we've covered the outside of the box, let's open this thing up. And I'm super excited because I picked it up this morning at around 8 o'clock. It's pushing 10 p.m., so I'm finally getting a chance to open this thing up. We're going to go to the side here, get the tab. I'm a stickler for keeping all original packaging, so I'm going to try really hard to get a decent video, but also not destroy this thing. So right out the gate you have, I believe, the user manual. So from what I understand, the manual, I believe, it has your basic manual instructions for hooking the system up, but I think it also has a poster. Not sure. You've got the warranty, user agreement information in there. Then you have the startup instructions. If you open it up, you get, looks like a big old poster. So that's pretty cool. I think it shows about 6 or so of the classic titles. It's pretty cool. Alright, so next we get into the contents of the box beyond just the user manual. I'm going to get the cord out first. These are pretty standard nowadays USB style outlet plug. Got the Nintendo logo on it. Looks like we have the first controller. Now this is pretty sweet. It feels just like the original. This is the one thing that they didn't make smaller. This is pretty true to form from the original style controller. The button layouts, the feel of the buttons, it feels virtually identical to the original Super Nintendo. Initially I'm not feeling any difference between this and the style from the original from 1990. It looks like we have our second controller, and that's what I really like about this time around. They failed to do with the original Nintendo Classic was they just packaged it with one controller. This is great because I'm looking forward to playing some Mario Kart with my kids, among a lot of the other games on there. Again, just a very authentic feeling controller. It's pretty sweet. And then, dig in here, this is the console. It is noticeably smaller. I think this is actually even smaller than the Nintendo Classic when it was released. At least, I think so. So from what I've read and what I'm seeing here, the power button still functions the way it would on the original Super Nintendo. Yeah, see that satisfying click. The reset button, from what I understand, takes you to the menu in-game. So if you want to exit out of a game and either save your game or play a different game, you do have to get off the couch and press this button right here. There's no home button on the controller or anything, although I'm reading about some third-party controllers that you can get that have that built in. It has the port here for where the cartridges would have normally gone in the original system, but nothing there. You can't put a cartridge in there. It's just for show. Similarly, the eject button doesn't do anything. It doesn't press in or anything. It's just there for show. And then this has gotten some mixed reviews. It has the controller ports on the front, but from what I understand, they do absolutely nothing. It's just for show. So when it comes time to put the connectors in, see if I can figure this out. Well, you kind of have to, so it looks like you have to hit it from the bottom, sort of pull it out a little bit, and then it pops down. Now, yeah, I can see where the complaints are. I mean, you miss out on the authenticity of not actually having the ports on the front, and this just feels, this latch feels just a little cheap to me. It's kind of flimsy, but it works. And this is where your controllers plug into. So anytime that you're done playing and you want to wrap up your controller, then you'd have to go back in and do that, which, again, I guess it's a matter of taste. Not my cup of tea. I get the authenticity look, but I think at the end of the day I would have sacrificed having these two controller mimic ports, if you will, just to have the controller inputs that it came with. Just getting a look at all the sides. It's your HDMI input, power input, and the bottom. Very lightweight. So this comes preloaded with 21 games, and again, it's not like the original. You don't put actual cartridges in. There's essentially just an emulator built in the middle of this thing and a shell built around it. So it's nothing too complex, but I cannot wait to get this thing hooked up. digging deeper in the box, we have the power cable. Lastly, the HDMI cable. If you weren't able to pick one up today, I wouldn't be too discouraged. Nintendo has basically promised that there would be a higher quantity available than there was for the Nintendo Classic. So if you didn't get one today, don't be discouraged. Definitely don't pick one up on eBay for, you know, the scalpers who are trying to pawn these things off for several $100s. You will get one, just keep checking. Lastly, for perspective, we talked a little bit about how small the console is, and just looking at it by the controllers, you can see what I'm talking about. This is vastly smaller than the original heavyweight brick of a Super Nintendo. You know, it fits quite nicely in the palm of my hand. It's very, very lightweight, so be careful with it. So that concludes the unboxing of the Super Nintendo. As you can see, or maybe see, the lighting's pretty bad right now. Got it hooked up, got it ready to play. I'm not going to show footage. There's a lot of really good reviews out there about the system, about the games on the system. I encourage you to check them out. But it's all ready to go. The one thing I've noticed right out the gate, there were some complaints that the controller cord was still just a bit too short. It's longer than the Nintendo Classic cord, but I'm noticing that if I want to get to my couch, it's not too bad, but it's that's about all she's got. So I think maybe sometime down the road I'll get a wireless third-party brand that does come with a home button, because I mean that is kind of a nice convenience to have nowadays, an option to take you right to the home screen without having to get up and reset the console. But other than that, I'm excited to try it out, so I think that's what I'm going to do next. Again, if you have the chance to pick this up, highly recommend it. For 80 bucks, you really get a pretty sweet deal. You could go online on eBay and pick up the original console for pretty cheap, but to pick up the cartridges, to pick up the individual games, especially for the games that are represented on this new console, you might be shelling out $80 just for one of those cartridges. Games like Yoshi's Island, games like Super Metroid, they're pretty pricey. So the fact that you're getting 21 of these games all built in, plug and play, ready to go, is a pretty sweet deal. Of course, a lot of people like to argue that you can just download an emulator on your computer, on your phone, play it that way. But you're paying for not only the games, but you're paying for the experience. It's just not the same as having an actual Super Nintendo controller in your hands. Really takes you back to the mid-90s when these games were really at their peak and Nintendo was at their best. So again, thanks for watching. I really recommend this system. Pick it up when you get a chance, and we'll see you next time.